Hey everybody, welcome to the video. It's Tuesday, April 27th, and we're breaking down this massive 13-game slate that we have over on DraftKings today, and it looks like it's going to be a fun one. Lots of good pitching. We got some aces on the mound, we have some decent SP2s, and we got lots of good offenses to pick from as well, so it should be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you guys are as well. And if you find this video helpful in any way possible, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Getting close to 8K subs, so I do appreciate that. Hit the notification bell to miss out whenever I drop these videos each and every single day. You know, follow me over on social media. The handle's in the bottom corner of your screen. And if you want help with the channel over on Patreon and join a community of several hundred members, link is down below for that. For the projections, optimizer, ownership projections, rankings, cheat sheets, data sheets, Discord community, Discord chat. I think I already mentioned that. And all that fun stuff. Link is down below. But I think that's it for the shameless plug. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And as per usual, we'll start with the pitchers and we'll move on to the bats. But up top, we got a couple aces here, Max Scherzer and Lucas Giolito. So up top with Max Scherzer, close to $11,000. So I'm not loving this price point. I don't think he's an absolute must-play today because there's a lot of good offenses and a lot of good expensive offenses, I should say. Mike Trout's another good spot. He's super expensive. Padres are in a good spot. So there's plenty of spend-up options here, so I don't think you absolutely have to play Max Scherzer today because you have Giolito that's $1,400 cheaper and an excellent matchup versus Detroit, and you're probably not playing both of those guys because that's above $20,000. That's typically my threshold, unless it's sometimes it can be slate specific where I'll make an exception to that rule, but I'm not sure I want to go above 20,000 in pitching today, so I feel like you're going to pick between these two guys, and if I had to pick between the two, I would side with Giolito because of the price point and the matchup. Anyway, Max has been fantastic this season, pretty much scoring almost over 30 points every single time he's out there. Again, small sample size so far this season, but he has been very, very darn good. And it's not like that's something new from Max Scherzer. He's always been a fantastic pitcher. And looking back since last season, 92 inning sample size, 3.3 SIERA, 3.46 xFIP, good ERA, good fastball velocity, about 100 pitches per game, 32% K rate. Doesn't really walk too many guys, 12 Ks per 9. The overall numbers are really good. The only one bad thing with Max is that he will give up a little bit of pop, so don't ever be surprised if there's just a random solo shot from a lefty in the lineup. But, you know, Toronto, I mean, they got some decent bats in their lineup, but no George Springer still, which obviously hurts the overall upside there. And, you know, so far this season, how they've fared versus righties, they're not really striking out too much, 23.9% clip. It's not like super low, so I don't think Max Scherzer is going to come out here and have like 4 strikeouts. He's probably going to get close to 10 like he typically does most starts. It's just, I wouldn't say it's the most cakewalk matchup here versus the Blue Jays, but only a 140 team ISO so far, 295 on base percentage, 292 WOBA, 87 WRC+. While it's not an amazing matchup here, I still think it's Max Scherzer, so it's not like you should be too concerned here. Usually elite pitching can overcome a good lineup, and I wouldn't even say Toronto is the most amazing lineup out there, and he has an 8K prop over in Vegas, slight favorite, and only a 4 implied team total against him. Don't love the park that he's pitching in, but I still think he's going to be fine either way. So I do like Max Scherzer, but again, the price point might just lead me to playing Giolito over him and maybe reserve him as a tournament play, but you really can't go wrong with him any single slate that he's on. Lucas Giolito, $9,500. I would say he's my SP1 today. If you can play both Scherzer and Giolito, go for it. There's a lot of bats on this slate, so you know that obviously means that we have a lot of value bats as well. So if you can go cheap with the bats today to make it work, you certainly can, because both these guys could easily come out and have 30-plus fantasy points. That's just how good they are. The one thing I will mention with Giolito is that if you're looking at the game log, he got absolutely rocked last start. I believe that game started at 11 a.m., so a lot of people probably missed that. I didn't even get to watch it personally. I was doing some other stuff. But I was watching the game log on the MLB app, and I saw it was the first inning. I think he had 8 runs given up. I forget if he even gotten out yet, but he was getting absolutely hammered. None of his pitches were working, and it was a bad, bad day for Lucas Giolito. So I made a note to never play Giolito at 11 a.m. before. And I saw a beat writer actually put on Twitter, I think it was before the game started, that Giolito, it's kind of funny that he's starting this game because he's not a morning guy. He's the kind of guy that's going to get up late in the clubhouse, wear his robe around. So, I mean, kind of translated to the start. I'm not sure if he was being, you know, if he was just kidding around beforehand or not, but, you know, something to keep in mind. But this is not going to be a morning game. We were playing at 8:10 p.m. Eastern. I guess that would be 7:10 p.m. their time, Central Time in Chicago, but good spot here versus the Detroit Tigers. They're a team that's always been struggling versus righties since a couple of seasons ago now. And so far, their splits this year, they've actually been a lot worse versus lefties compared to righties, but still at 27.4% K rate's pretty good. only 7% walk rate. The ISO's kind of up, 176 ISO, but a 272 on base percentage, 288 WOBA. Overall, I still think Lucas Giolito's got the massive advantage here in this line. Vegas would agree, only a 3 implied team total for the Tigers here on the road. Pretty heavy favorite, 68% chance for a win and 6.5K prop over in Vegas, which honestly feels a little bit low. I would not mind betting the over there. Maybe they're just a little bit concerned from what they saw last start, but yeah, I'd say Boston's a much better hitting team than the Detroit Tigers are. So I'm definitely a big fan of Lucas Giolito here. Hate to call a pitcher a core play this early. I'm actually recording this video the night beforehand, so if you're wondering why some Vegas numbers are not showing up, and they are when you wake up tomorrow, that's because I'm doing this video very, very early. It's a big slate, so I just want to get out there so I can work on getting this stuff up on Patreon tomorrow morning. But yeah, I think I've said it 500 times, but I do like Lucas Giolito today. Then we get into the SP2 range here with Ian Anderson, $8,600. He's kind of a fringe SP1, but to be honest, I'd probably want to start my lines with either Max or Lucas tomorrow. I want to keep saying his full name. I feel like I've said it 500 times. But anyway, I like Anderson here quite a bit versus Chicago. He's a bit more of a wild card here, but there's plenty of strikeout upside. And Morton, I mean, he was having a really good start. Then he gave that grand slam to Chris Bryant. But outside of that grand slam, I think he had a pretty solid game for the most part. I don't remember the strikeout total, but he didn't give up that grand slam, which I know was a big if. He was having a solid day. It just sucks that happened. He had that really bad inning. I forget what inning that happened in. But outside of that, he was pretty sharp. But Anderson, since last season, he's sporting a 28% K rate, 2.4 ERA, 3.45 xFIP, 3.96 SIERA, less than 200 batting average, a 266 WOBA given up, and virtually no power whatsoever with a lot of ground balls, not a lot of hard contact either. And the Cubs have been a team that's been striking out quite a bit versus righties so far this season. They've overall been struggling. 27.5% K rate. They are walking quite a bit, but the overall numbers aren't super impressive. Kind of right on par with the Tigers and the Blue Jays for the most part, which, like in their on-base percentage, WOBA and WRC plus, kind of like right on par with those three teams. And I like the pitchers facing them, so I think Ian Anderson's a fine option. A bit more of a wild card here, so I feel like I'd rather go there in tournaments than cash games, but I think he's certainly viable in any format with just lean tournaments. And then the SP2s to probably pair with either a Giolito or a Scherzer today. Aaron Sanchez gets that really soft matchup at home versus the Rockies, who are just an absolutely horrendous offense away from Coors Field. They're not even that good in Coors either, but they're always viable in Coors because it's Coors. But man, I didn't see the ending of this game. I'm not sure if it's still going on, but last time I looked, Estefani did not give up a run yet. I don't know what his pitch count was. I'm not sure if he came out of the game at some point. He might have got a complete game shutout. I am not sure, but the Rockies just were doing absolutely awful versus DeSclafani, and while I think DeSclafani is a little bit better than Aaron Sanchez, Sanchez hasn't been terrible this year. He's kind of sitting around 10 to 18 points so far this season. I think his last start he was fine versus the Marlins. I want to say he only went 70 pitches though, but he was very efficient. He was doing fine. He just kind of got taken out early, but $7,200 versus a pretty putrid offense. I would take that in a pitcher's park. Only 3.4 implied team total against him. Pretty heavy favorite. Only a 4K prop over in Vegas. Not really expecting a lot of strikeouts here since last season. He's only got an 18% K rate. So I know in DFS we're hunting strikeouts, but I'm not going to get super picky here. It's mainly just a matchup play. If he can give me a handful of strikeouts, give up a run, be in line for the win at the end, that's not terrible at $7,200. I just don't want him to explode, which I don't think is going to happen here. And looking at the Rockies so far versus righties this season, 24.8% K rate, 6% walk rate, 75 WRC plus. And you got to keep in mind, they've had a decent amount of games in Coors Field, which is going to inflate these numbers. If you take that out of Coors Field, these numbers get significantly worse. WRC plus kind of accounts for that, and as you can see, it's all the way down to 75. So I do like Aaron Sanchez as a fine SP2 today. Not a high upside pitcher, but probably not one that's going to blow up in your face today. Jose Quintana, $6,500, kind of righted the ship. Last start was versus actually the same Texas team, and I want to say, I don't have the game log right in front of my face. I'm pretty sure he had 25 points or right around there. It was a pretty good game though, and he was actually a little bit more expensive. I think he was just below 7K. Now he's $6,500. I can get on board here. So Shohei Ohtani, if you guys were watching that game, it looked like he was going to get absolutely rocked. He gave up 4 runs in the first inning. I think he allowed the 5 out of the first 6 batters on base. Gave up that home run to Nate Lowe. It's either Lowe or Lau. I forget. I always get him and Brandon mixed. I'm pretty sure it's Brandon Lau and Nate Lowe. But Nate Lowe had that donger early on, and Ohtani looked like he was going to get rocked. I saw some takes on Twitter saying he should never pitch again. And then he struck out like 8 of the next 9 guys. I mean, he became flawless after that. He had another good day at the plate. I mean, Ohtani's just such a treat to watch. It's really fun watching him. One of the best players in baseball, but not that this applies to Jose Quintana, but I guess it kind of does because Ohtani showed some strikeout upside versus a team that has struggled so far this season. Jose Quintana's got some okay strikeout upside. He had some decent amount of strikeouts versus them last time out. In 20 innings since start of this season, Quintana's got a 31% K rate, which is not bad. 15% walk rate, which kind of sucks, but 13 Ks per 9 innings. I mean, he's kind of a bit of a wild card here because he's had some pretty bad starts, but he had that really nice start last time versus Texas. So I'll take the soft matchup here, and they are a team that will struggle versus left-handed pitching quite a bit. So far this season, a 25% K rate, but a 78 WRC plus, 273 WOBA, 283 on base percentage, and only a 110 ISO with a pretty bad 6.8% walk rate. So a very soft matchup here for Q Ball here, and I do think he's a very viable SP2 at a very, very cheap price point. And I don't like that the roof was open yesterday for pitching. It kind of it's a boost for the bats, but I think he'll probably give up a run or two. But if he can just get you a handful of strikeouts, $6,500 is not that bad, especially if he can be lined for the win. And I would say the Angels are one of the best stacks on the slate today, so I like the win equity here for Quintana. There's no team total out yet, but I had to guess the Rangers are probably going to be in the lower to mid threes. They'll probably be similar to what the Rockies are, like around 3.4, 3.5, probably around there. And I'd say Quintana's probably going to be like at a 65% chance for the win, which not that bad at his price points. I do think he is certainly viable. With that being said, that'll be it for the pitching. So let's move on to the bats. And as always, we'll start with the catcher position, move around the diamond, and hit the outfield as well. And we'll start up top with Gary Sanchez, $4,700 for the New York Yankees, and they busted hardcore yesterday. Hardcore versus Matt Harvey. I think in one of my tournaments I was in the 3 max, someone actually used Matt Harvey, and he was like 0.5, I think, percent owned, 0.5, and I was like, well, I'm not sure what this guy's thinking, and guess what? I think he had the best lineup so far. I mean, I don't think this slate's over yet. I want to say the Dodgers are still going. I'm not sure if that Giants game's still going, but the Giants put up like 50 runs, it feels like. But yeah, the Yankees busted. I mean, a couple guys had a decent outing. I'm pretty sure Zernko Stanton had that double and a run. Might have had an RBI. Aaron Judge had the double in the RBI, but I mean, that's not really what you wanted out of their price point. So yeah, for the most part, they busted pretty bad, but nice bounce back spot here versus Bruce Zimmerman. I do realize the Yankees have been bad all season long, but at some point they're going to break out here, and not a bad spot here versus Bruce Zimmerman, the lefty on the mound. There's a lot of guys in this lineup that can hit left-handed pitching very, very well. So I do like the bounce back spot here, and I would imagine they're going to be lower owned just because people don't like going back to teams that dusted them yesterday, which the Yankees weren't even super chalky. The cheaper options were more so chalky. Giovanni Urshela was pretty high owned. Aaron Hicks had some decent ownership. Giancarlo Stanton had a lot of ownership. Aaron Judge, LeMahieu were decently low owned just because of those price points. It was really hard to get up to a $6,000 Aaron Judge when everyone was wanting to play Mike Trout and Ronald Acuna too. So it made sense that they weren't super chalky, but don't want to go back to the well here. Sanchez, I mean, not hitting the ball well this season. Batting average below 200, striking out quite a bit. 137 not WRC plus. I wish it was his WRC plus. 137 ISO with a 98 WRC plus. And if we look at Zimmerman's splits so far, it's only a 28 inning sample size, but he's sporting a 5.3 ERA and only an 18% K rate, 6 Ks per 9, 4.6 Sierra, and ISO below 200, but around 180, which does give you a decent amount of pop for an offense for some upside. So I can definitely get behind a Yankee stack today. If you're looking specifically to righties, he's definitely more beatable from that side. 13% K rate, 5.7 xFIP, only 5 Ks per 9, a 45% fly ball rate, 257 ISO given up. So these righties are in a very good spot, and the Orioles bullpen's beatable as well. And it's a hitter-friendly park in Camden Yards, and you get the guaranteed 9th inning at bats on the road. So you can certainly sign me up for the Yankees with their team total above 5 today. And then after that, I would just play whatever catcher fits, to be honest. And I don't even love Gary Sanchez because of that price point. It's really hard to trust him because I feel like every time I play Gary, I just wish I would have played a cheaper catcher because they had a similar game, but he kind of just has more name value than anything. But we obviously know there's upside in the bat. But Francisco versus Corey Kluber. Look, I'm a big Indians fan. I used to love Corey Kluber. I still do. I mean, I have nothing against him. It's just he's not a very good pitcher anymore in the past. Cy Young contender or the Cy Young winner. But these days, it's on the Yankees. It's just not. He's not the same kind of pitcher, and he's a very beatable pitcher these days. And the Orioles only have a 3.9 implied team total here, and it wouldn't shock me if they went over that. So I wouldn't hate the Orioles as a contrarian stack today. It's not like I'm going out of my way to stack the Orioles on a 13-game slate with lots of good offenses, but if you want to get super contrarian, Corey Kluber is just not that great of a pitcher these days in hitter-friendly park, so I can get behind some Orioles. And Chance Sisco in the past has always had some decent pop versus right-handed pitching. Anthony Benboom, assuming Kurt Suzuki gets the day off. Also, he got hit with the ball pretty hard. He had to shake it off for a little bit. I was watching that Angels game. He got hit pretty hard. The trainer had to come out. He ended up walking it off, and then I think he ended up getting a hit later on in the game when he was on offense. But I would assume he's going to probably get the day off here, and they'll probably put Ben Boom in. And if that's the case, lefty on righty matchup, $2,600. I think the Angels are one of the best stacks in the slate today. I would assume their team total is going to be above 5 here. Folty's not an absolute trash can, but he's certainly a beatable pitcher. If the roof's open again, it's another boost for bats as well, like it was last night. And the Angels took advantage. I think they ended the game with 9 runs. I'm not sure if they got above that. I'm pretty sure they ended with 9. But Upton went deep. Pujols went deep. Ohtani, Trout, Jared Walsh all had good games. And I mean, it's a pretty good offense. Rondon came back. That kind of snuck up on me. I didn't realize he was coming back yesterday until I saw some news about that. And I got a little bit excited. Threw him in a lineup. Didn't really do much. He wasn't looking that great at the plate, to be honest. Looked kind of lost on a couple at bats. I was watching the game, like I mentioned, and just some things I noticed. But hopefully, shook the rust off in that game, and hopefully he can bounce back because I do like him. As you can see, he's going to be showing up later on in this video. But anyway, Anthony Benboom, he's a guy that's always had some decent pop versus righties, and it's a good spot here. Like all the Angels, just a cheap way to get Angels exposure. Dropping on first base, Freddie Freeman, very expensive, but he's facing a righty, and anytime Freddie Freeman faces a righty, he will be a top play on the slate. Don't love the Brave stack compared to other teams today. They're sitting at 4.75. Trevor Williams, not the worst pitcher out there, but he's pretty average for the most part. I wouldn't say he's very good, but I wouldn't say he's horrendous, so he kind of falls right in the middle there, maybe even lean below average sometimes. Just depends. If he's got his stuff working, he can be like slightly above average, but for the most part, he's an average pitcher, and Freddie Freeman, he crushes right-handed pitching. We can get to the numbers, but I go over it every single time. You guys get the idea. Freeman crushes righties. Eric Hosmer, $4,300, and that's one of the things where I'm probably not going to get the Freddie today because I want to play Mike Trout. I want to play Aaron Judge. I'm probably going to go cheaper at first base today, and Eric Hosmer is $1,600 cheaper, and he's in a very good spot versus Merrill Kelly in Arizona. It's warm there. It's going to be good hitting conditions, and Padres are one of the best offenses in baseball. And Merrill Kelly's a guy that allows a lot of hard contact, and I definitely like the Padres today. I think the Yankees and Angels would be pretty popular for the most part, maybe even the Astros as well, but I'm liking these Padres quite a bit. If they're going to go a little bit overlooked, it's the day before, so it's hard to even start thinking about ownership. Haven't even ran mine yet, but I would assume the Padres won't get as much love as those guys. Plus, their team total is sitting below 5 right now, so just some really early thoughts on that, but I'm liking the price point quite a bit, and he's been playing very well this season. He's batting .315 with a .368 WOBA. The power hasn't been huge for him, only 157 ISO, but a 135 WRC plus, and overall some pretty strong numbers. And looking at Merrill Kelly, what I was talking about with the hard contact rate, he does get hit pretty hard. He's allowing a 44.6% hard contact rate since last year with only a 19% K rate. So I'm liking the upside here for the Padres. I like both the lefties and righties here, but I guess I would prefer the lefties, but I really doesn't change too much for me. You can still play Machado, Tatis, and Will Myers in this lineup. Then Brandon Belt, $3,300. I don't think the Giants are going to put up 500 runs like they did last night once again, but Chichi Gonzalez is not a good pitcher, and I would say he's probably worse than Austin Gomber. I mean, Gomber got absolutely killed last night, but you can definitely play pretty much all the lefties here versus Chichi. He's just not a good pitcher, and if we look at his splits versus lefties, since last season, Chichi is sitting at a 10% walk rate, which is right on par with his 10.3% K rate, 5.6 xFIP, only 4 Ks per 9 with a 324 batting average given up, 1.8 whip, just some overall pretty stinky numbers for the most part. So you can definitely get guys like Brandon Belt, Alex Dickerson, and Tommy La Stella in your lineup. And if you thought we think the Padres might even be somewhat contrarian on a 13-game slate, the Giants aren't going to have much ownership whatsoever because no one ever gets excited about playing the Giants, especially on a big slate with lots of good bats. So I don't hate them, and they're also pretty cheap. Belt's only $3,300, and we know he's got really good splits versus right-handed pitching since last season. So far this year, it hasn't been amazing. Only a 186 batting average, but the power's been there so far in a smaller sample size. 280 ISO, striking out a ton. but 54% fly ball rate and a 45.8% hard contact rate. So I would assume those numbers are going to improve. Definitely get behind that price tag of Brandon Belt. Dropping out second base, Diesel Mayhew. Kind of similar reasons to what I talked about with Gary Sanchez, where you can play the Yankees today. They're just very expensive, but it's a good get-right spot here versus Bruce Zimmerman, who has really struggled versus right-handed bats. Team total above 5 here, and they pretty much check all my boxes. It's just been hard to trust the Yankees so far this season. Tommy La Stella, $3,700. Pretty much the same play as Brandon Belt, so I'll save you guys the conversation there. But if you like Belt, you should like La Stella, and they both hit near the top of the order. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was kind of thinking about Alex Dickerson when I said Brandon Belt. Brandon Belt's in the cleanup spot, which technically in the top of the order, but kind of right in the middle of the part of that order. Plenty of RBI opportunities for him. Then David Fletcher, $3,100. If you're stacking the Angels, kind of hard to leave off the leadoff guy. It's only $3,100. He's also been hitting a little bit better recently. His numbers overall this season haven't been great. Virtually no power, but he's been getting on base recently. And I mean, $3,100 for probably with a team total above 5 today. You can sign me up for some David Fletcher. If it's not above 5, it should be the high 4s, but I would imagine it's going to be above 5. That's my hunch. Because if they can get the Folty early, which a couple guys did have some success versus Folty last time they played them, because they did face Folty, so just my thoughts there. Dropping out of third base, you have Alex Bregman, $5,200. Anytime he's facing a lefty, he will be a top option on the slate because he crushes left-handed pitching, and he's been playing great this season. He's got a .316 batting average, 377 WOBA, 152 WRC+, and those numbers do improve when we look specifically to lefties. But if you guys watch my videos, I pretty much show you the splits every single time, and they have not changed since yesterday. Alex Bregman still has amazing splits versus lefties over the course of his career, especially since last season. Anthony Rendon, $4,900. He returned to the lineup yesterday. I think he only had 2 points. He drew a walk. I believe that was it, but didn't look great at the plate, to be honest. I mean, that was just my eye test, though. Maybe my eye test was wrong, but he didn't look great. But I mean, his first game back. Rendon's one of the better hitters in baseball. Wouldn't say he's up like a Trout level guy or a Tatis or something like that, but we know that he's an excellent hitter. Typically has good plate discipline, hits for a high average with a lot of power, and it's only been 37 plate appearances for him this season, but he's batting .290, 341 WOBA. Hasn't had a lot of power so far, but I think we all know those numbers are going to rise, and he's just fine versus lefties and righties. So do like Rendon in Angel stacks. Really hard to leave off the guy that's going to be hitting such a key part of that order. And Gio Urshela, $3,100. He was very popular last night, and I can see him having ownership once again, because if you don't want to spend up for the big bats of Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Sanchez, Diesel Mayhew, I totally get that. If you just want a cheap part of the Yankee stack, Urshela's here at $3,100, and he hits in a pretty good spot in the order, so I could definitely get behind using some Urshela versus a lefty. And then dropping out a shortstop, Tatis, $5,400. Then we get Merrill Kelly, which I kind of already mentioned this with Eric Hosmer, but he's a guy that gives up a lot of hard contact, a lot of power, doesn't really strike out too many guys. So Tatis, I mean, one of the best players in baseball. So far this season, a 386 ISO with a WOBA over 400. The batting average hasn't been great, but the shoulder does not seem to be bothering him. He just keeps homering almost every single day. Like every time I go on Twitter, and if I'm not paying attention to the Padres game, which I probably should more just to watch some more Tatis live, because he's a treat to watch. I feel like I'm seeing that Tatis just homered once again, and the Dodgers series, I feel like he homered every single time he was up at bat. It was crazy, but yeah, if you're stacking the Padres, you can't leave off Tatis. That's just not how things work. You got to play him if you are stacking the Padres. And then I realized this is out of order. I should have Torres next and then Jake Cronenworth, but since we're already talking about the Padres, we'll just keep going with Cronenworth. Wish he was seen a little bit higher in the order, but the guy's got excellent place discipline. He can make a lot of contact. He can really cover the plate really, really well. One of the better hitters in the league at making contact and not whiffing, which I do like on my players. He's also pretty cheap, so if you want cheap exposure to the Padres, Cronenworth is your guy. He's just a guy I trust in my lineups. There's some guys out there that I feel like everyone's got a good connection with when putting them in your lineups. For me, guys like Jake Cronenworth, Michael Brantley, I don't know. I just feel good about them in my lineups. Guys like Brandon Belt, Shohei Ohtani, I feel like I just have good history of playing them in my lineup, so they're just easier for me to trust. But I like Cronenworth quite a bit. Then Torres, kind of a similar play to Urshela, where he's a cheaper Yankees bat, also doesn't hit in a bad spot in the order, and he can hit lefties well, so I think he's fine if you are stacking Yankees or if you're just looking to get some cheap exposure. Then dropping down to the outfield, Mike Trout, $6,300, the best player in baseball. So I don't think these numbers have updated from yesterday's games, because I'm pretty sure Mike Trout, he's batting like .430 now. So right now he's batting .393, but I think once that updates tomorrow, it's probably going to say he's in the 400s, because he went 4 for 4 last night, unless I missed something. He had the infield hit, which did count as a hit, because the second baseman couldn't get turned around quick enough. Mike Trout beat it out. But yeah, $6,300. I realize he's super expensive, but he is just so good at baseball, and especially versus right-handed pitching. Like, these numbers are crazy. A 405 batting average, 586 WOBA, 524 ISO, 294 WRC plus. And don't forget, guys, once this updates in the morning, it's going to get even better. Again, we're still dealing with small sample sizes. He's not going to keep these insane numbers up all season long, but probably won't be too far off of him. He probably won't be too far off of him. So I love Mike Trout here. If you get the money to spend up for him, he is the top pretty much home run call in the entire slate. He also took Folty deep a couple of days ago. Maybe not a couple of days ago, but Folty's last start, I forget what day that was. Might have been a Friday. Last Friday. I mean, Mike Trout took care of business there, and I would not be surprised if he does it once again. Aaron Judge, $5,600. He's got a ton of power in his bat versus lefties or righties, but he gets a lefty on the mound here. And Zimmerman, like we showed, does struggle versus right-handed bats, so don't mind Aaron Judge if you're stacking the Yankees. Trent Grisham, $5,100. He's got some good numbers so far this season, batting just below 300 with a WOBA just below 400, ISO at 225, 148 WRC plus. Those numbers are better versus righties compared to lefties. And Kelly's a guy that will give up a lot of hard contact. Pitching in Arizona, thinking these Padres bats are in a really good spot for tournaments today. You can get there in cash games as well. I just feel like I'd lean the Angels and the Yankees, but no issues at all with any of the Padres staying in any format. Giancarlo Stanton, $4,700. He'll probably be pretty popular because people going to Judge. I feel like Stanton's a very similar play to Judge, and he's about $1,000 cheaper. And I feel like people don't want to play both, especially in cash games, because it's going to eat a bunch of salary, and people are probably going to try to get the Trout today. And everyone's going to play Ohtani. I'd imagine Ohtani's one of the highest owned players in the entire slate. I'm not sure why he's $4,300. He should probably be close to Trout's price tag, because he's been amazing so far this season, but I'm not going to complain. It's just going to be easier to play him, but it's just going to lead to higher ownership. But I don't think I was done talking about Stan, but he does crush left-handed pitching and left on the mound, so I think that makes obvious sense there. But Ohtani, $4,300. What's not to like here? The guy throws 100 miles per hour. He can strike out 8 or 9 guys, and he can also get a bunch of hits. He laid that on bunt yesterday, beat that out. He just did everything, and it's just so fun to watch him. So fun to watch Ohtani, one of my favorite players in the league, and I'm sure a lot of you guys is one of your favorite players to watch as well. It's just, I don't see how you hate the guy. How can you hate Ohtani? He just, whenever you look at him, he just looks so innocent and nice. But anyway, Ohtani here going up against a righty. So far this season, he's batting .286. Once these numbers update, it should be even higher. I forget exactly what he did last night in terms of what his batting average was, but I know he had a good night on the in the batter's box. But a 377 ISO this year, one of the league leaders in homers, 662 slugging, 988 OPS. He is striking out quite a bit, doesn't really walk much, but I mean, his numbers, power numbers have been insane. $4,300 for, should be hitter-friendly conditions here in Texas. I haven't really looked at it's supposed to rain or not, but I can't imagine it's going to be anything like that in Texas, so we shouldn't have to worry there. I'd imagine it'll be warm as well, so you can sign me up for Shohei Ohtani. Hate to call people core plays the night before a slate starts, but Ohtani at $4,300 is definitely going to grade out very well for me. Very well. Then we have old man Justin Upton, his teammate, $3,500. He went deep last night. I forget if it was a first pitch thing, but I think it was, first pitch homer versus Jordan Lyles. Jordan Lyles did not look very good yesterday, and we might have a similar performance here from Folty. So I can get behind some Upton. He's actually been okay this year too. I know the batting average isn't great at 242, but we've talked about guys with the worst. Like Stanton's at 186, Aaron Hicks is at 172, Torres at 213. So we can't complain too much with a 242 batting average, and the ISO has been above 200 so far. So I know he's kind of a washed player at this point, but he's been having a decent season so far relative to his price point, and he's a way to get some cheap Angels exposure. So I do like Justin Upton today. Alex Dickerson, $3,500. Very similar plays to what we talked about with Tommy LaStella and Brandon Belt, so I'm not going to go too in depth there, but he's fine versus Chichi Gonzalez, who's not a very good pitcher. Then Aaron Hicks, $3,000. He's been pretty bad this year, only batting 172, but I still think he's a viable option here as a righty versus Bruce Zimmerman at $3,000 if you do want cheap Yankees exposure. There's a couple of other pump plays at outfield, but I don't want to go over every single outfielder, but I think you guys get the idea. Like Cole Calhoun, he could be a fine player versus a righty. Audubel Herrera is a min price at $2,000. Hits near the bottom of the order, but he's still viable because of the price point. But I think with that being said, guys, that'll be it for the video. So I do appreciate you watching, and if you liked the video, or if you found it helpful in any way possible, please leave a like. And if you want to follow me over on social media, channel's in the bottom corner of your screen. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you're interested in getting some extra content and supporting the channel over on Patreon and joining the community of several hundred members, link is down below for that, for the projections, optimizer, ownership projections, rankings, cheat sheets, data sheets, Discord community, all that fun stuff. Link is down below. But I think that's pretty much it. I will stop rambling. Hope you guys enjoy your Tuesday. Make the most of it. I'll see you guys in the next video.